Good evening, Chicago. This is Jerry Vasilatos with Daniel Luepker of Hardlens Media.
Hey, good to be here. Good to be back.
It's great to have you back, Daniel. I always love having a wonderful rotation of co-hosts from the Hardlens Media stable of colleagues. It's our Friday night live stream. Welcome everybody to the live chat. We hope to be able to include comments from the live chat as we go through our stories tonight. It's been an interesting week, but before I begin with some of our coverage, Daniel, is there anything you want to share with our viewers from Hardlens Media? I caught part of the broadcast tonight. It sounds like there's some exciting news on the horizon.
Yeah, so we just announced on our Patreon show something that we've been working on, but we've been keeping under wraps for the entire summer. And we just got confirmation on the biggest step of this process, and now we're moving to another one, but it's going to mean a lot of really cool changes. It's going to be some cool changes for Chicago Corner. It's going to be some really cool changes for the network and Hardlens Media. But I think especially what I'm looking forward to is changes for people that we don't know yet, that we know we're going to know very soon, and people we're going to be able to work with. And we're going to be letting everyone know, and I'm sure next time you broadcast, on Monday, we're announcing to the public what's actually going on. So very excited for that. And if anyone's a patron, wants to be a patron for Hardlens Media, you get the scoop there, or you have to wait a couple days.
Well, I'll definitely carry the news on over when we do our Tuesday night broadcast.
Awesome.
So I'm really happy. It's been quite a year of growth with Hardlens Media and also with Chicago Corner, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
We're really happy to have you. It's been really great watching Chicago Corner find its rhythm, which has been fun to watch. Speaking
of rhythm, I feel like I'm hearing a heartbeat. I don't know if it's an echo from...
Oh, someone is either shooting a gun or fireworks somewhere near me.
Okay. I thought we're talking about the channel's growth. Suddenly we have this like Edgar Allan Poe heartbeat in the background.
Yeah, you get used to it.
It's alive. It's alive.
Yeah, it's like every week someone's like, you know what? Fireworks. Yeah. Right now. That's good.
Well, it's a nice weekend. It's hopefully we'll go into another one without too much violence, but that our hopes are usually dashed by the time Monday morning comes around. And speaking of violence, I am going to go into our first story here. Let me take our branding off, bring up our smaller names so we can bring up our screen here. So, as many people know this week, Officer Ella French was laid to rest. It's been quite a dramatic week regarding developments as it relates to the shooting that happened. I believe it was a week and a half ago. And I don't know. I just felt out of honor to Officer French. I would share a little bit from the ceremony before we actually got into some of the news that corresponds with it. How loud this is.
So many poignant moments, Tanya, and I think one of them being the eloquent words from Cardinal Blaise Cupich describing Ella as a woman of empathy for the sufferings of others, humble enough to know she could always improve, and generous to the point of dedicating her life to making a difference in our world.
So I don't think there should be any controversy surrounding what happened in this tragedy with Officer French. But of course, there's a lot of chatter on social media regarding some things. I want to just quickly quote from the Tribune before we talk about some of this stuff. The slain Chicago, this comes from the Tribune, slain police officer Ella French helped us save a baby who was shot in Englewood this summer, rushing the infant and the mother to the hospital on her own. She chased stray dogs down the street while on duty so she could take them to the animal shelter. She brought banana bread and cinnamon rolls to work for her colleagues. She listened to people, even those who were angry and disrespectful, so she could better understand them. Amid stories about her compassion and desire to help others, French was eulogized Thursday at a funeral, replete with the traditions and tributes bestowed upon a police officer killed in the line of duty. And as a side note, I also recall reading a story that there was that horrible incident, I think it was before Lori Lightfoot took office, where the police had burst into a home. They had the wrong address, and they kind of traumatized this woman who wasn't dressed. I'm forgetting the lady's name now. But of course, the city tried to cover it up, and the lady had to file a Freedom of Information Act request, and now she's suing the city. Turns out Officer French was not part of the initial police entourage that entered that wrong address, but she showed up afterwards to help this traumatized woman, give her covering, and basically be there to help, I don't know, I guess, try to normalize the situation for her after the police had left. So as we heard in that news report, she was obviously an officer of compassion. She seemed to have the type of compassion we hope all officers would have, along with the empathy that she showed others. And I think it was a fitting tribute that so many people showed up to her funeral. And I really hope that the compassion and empathy everyone knew her for is embraced by the police department instead of turning her into some kind of a martyr to distract from the business as usual that we normally see from CPD. It's a hot button topic, and I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of, unhappy people tonight on both sides of the aisle as we talk about both sides of the situation. I mean, we can recognize that Officer French was a decent officer. She exemplified what I think law enforcement should be about. And then we also know that there are going to be others on the other side who are going to use this and glom onto it as the reason that we have to increase spending on the police department, how we have to ignore many of the mandates that Mayor Lightfoot has been proposing to hopefully get police to de-escalate as opposed to escalate in really tight situations. What are some of your thoughts on what you're hearing on the streets here too with this, Daniel?
So my own thoughts are very mixed. So generally speaking, when I think of police and the issues that we have with police, I very much do think of them. I try to almost minimize the individualness, and I really think more of it as a group, as a system of people. So I can understand and feel very empathetic for the death of someone who, by all accounts, seemed to be good and doing good. But I feel like it's not in the big picture of what happens. I think in the long term, I think it's actually more likely to be negative for the people of the city because of the last part that you just brought up, that there's a very good likelihood that the police are going to use this as an example mentally within their own people that, hey, this is why we don't give people a second to react. This is why we shoot first. I always mention on the show that police are trained that if there's a 5% chance that the family is going to hurt you, just shoot them all. And that's the way that they're trained to act. And so I think this is going to just reinforce that. I think that's going to reinforce that. And I think that, I don't know how to do the math on this because there's really no way to actually count, but it wouldn't surprise me that if her death led to police shooting two innocent people as kind of that default mindset. So in a lot of ways, I almost feel irrelevant to her death because I first would cover so many deaths of so many people. And I always think of, how many times have the police put on a grand funeral like that for someone that they shot that they shouldn't have because they didn't enter the wrong place? Mm-hmm. The person didn't have a gun they thought they did. The person was a kid who was shot when he didn't have a gun when they thought he did. So I'm very conflicted. I think on an individual level, I completely agree with everything you said. But I worry on the big picture that this is really bad.
I'm conflicted on it a bit also. When we first reported on the circumstances surrounding the shooting last week, there were some comments posted on our YouTube channel questioning the validity of the police department's accounting of what happened, given the fact that all the police in the situation wore body cams. And my first instinct was I saw the two suspects, I saw the shooter and I saw his brother, and I thought, I hate to broad stroke, but just looking at these guys and knowing that they were carrying an illegal weapon, I'm more prone to believing the police department's account of things because eventually, when they're in court, those police cameras are going to have to be shown. And I would imagine that if CPD decided to fudge the facts right now, there would be hell to pay later if it turned up in court that the body cams on the police officers actually showed something different. Now, there was a big, social media outcry this week that I saw where people were very, very upset that the court suppressed the release of the body cam videos, which I believe would have proven the veracity of the police department's accounts of what happened. But what people missed was the fact that it was the defense attorneys that requested the court suppress the release of the body cam videos. So that would tend to lead one to think that obviously those tapes are pretty damning to the defendants, and you don't want to taint a jury pool by the time this goes to trial. So, at a certain point, cooler heads do have to prevail. One of the things that I thought was, yeah, those body cams would definitely show what happened. But here's the issue too. I got into with somebody on Facebook who was very angry that I would suggest that the police department would suggest something that wasn't on the body cams. I said, look, if there hadn't been questions about previous police body cam footage that had been suppressed in the past, whether it had to do with Laquan McDonald or Adam Toledo, and the police were more forthcoming in those circumstances instead of playing cover up, I would then probably be at fault to believe the police accounts. But the reason there's so much distrust is because we've seen in the past what happens when body cam footage is suppressed, covered up. It's usually them scrambling behind the scenes to figure out how they can change the narrative. I don't think that this was a circumstance in the suppression of this particular police cam footage that has anything to do with covering anything up, given the fact that it was the defense that, I guess, requested the court suppress this video until they go to court. Because, of course, there are questions about tainting a jury pool and, public perception of what's going on without the defendants getting a fair trial.
Yeah, I agree with that take completely. That's exactly the way that I would interpret it. I guess I think it's fair to say that if you're going to suppress something, you probably don't want it to come out. And if you're, so that makes a lot of sense. I think that, this seems like a rather straightforward case. Again, we'll wait and see what happens the same way we do with everyone else. But again, it's always like, in my mind, whenever these happen, I just kind of go to the duality of like how, just imagine if the citizens of Chicago were given a budget for this kind of defense prosecution. I just feel like it's a lot of what we're dealing with, especially is the police have hurt their own reputation so bad by doing so many terrible things that it's, like I said, again, to me, it's much more the systemic issue. And this person is just a single story, 3x plus y equals, and that's this person in this circumstance. But, we're going to have to wait and see, but it does, I do agree with your take.
Now, while we can be critical of how the police handle things outside of this circumstance, where it appears from what we've heard, the police, including Officer French, who had been involved in this traffic stop, were following proper procedure. It's also ironic to me, again, on the fence, it's hard to call it one way or the other when you find out that the judge, I guess, released the suspect who purchased the weapon in Indiana and gave it to the shooters that killed, or the shooter that killed Officer French. Now, this comes from Block Club Chicago, and I'll bring this screen up and I'll read from some of this article because it's surprising to me that this happened given everything surrounding the incident. Top cop blasts federal judge calling release of alleged straw buyer and slain officer's case an outrage. And this comes from Block Club Chicago. Chicago's top cop slammed a federal judge for setting a low bond for the Indiana man charged with illegally buying and providing the gun used in the slaying of Chicago police officer Ella French, calling it an outrage. Police Superintendent David Brown on Wednesday put out a statement criticizing the $4,500 bond set for Jamel Danzy, leading to his supervised release. To say that I'm extremely disappointed in U.S. Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Gilbert's decision to release Jamel Danzy on an unsecured bond today is an understatement, Brown said. It is an outrage. French was shot and killed at 9 p.m. Saturday during a traffic stop in Englewood. We know those details. Amonte Morgan has been charged with first-degree murder of a peace officer. Danzy, 29 of Hammond, was charged in federal court with conspiracy to violate federal weapons laws for allegedly buying the gun used in the shooting. He was ordered released Wednesday, drawing the angry statement from Brown, who has repeatedly criticized the court system for releasing suspects. Now, I do know that there's been a lot of back and forth on Superintendent Brown criticizing the court for releasing violent offenders. More often we hear from the court that they're releasing nonviolent offenders. But I got to say, in this circumstance, I am kind of perplexed why the judge would set such a low bond and let this guy go supervised, given the severity of what happened. And I have to think, I actually spoke with a friend of mine in the court system for their opinion on this today. And they said to me, this judge would not want to cover his ass, would want to cover his ass in releasing this guy. So there must be something that came out during the sentencing and the bond setting that apparently allowed this judge to release this guy, because maybe there was some kind of a detail that was missed, something the cops missed, some kind of glitch that made the judge feel that this was the right decision to make.
Are you aware in this for what he's what they want to charge him with, what that would entail if he was charged with it? Like how many years? Because it just seems to me like in America, illegally moving guns is like stealing bubble gum in terms of severity that we put on it. So I wonder if the reason that happened, especially since this happened and this purchase happened in Indiana, where, as we know, it's very lax in these cases. I just wonder if this is the going rate for selling someone a gun.
Well, the Block Club Chicago article further says the gun found at the scene was the same Glock registered to Danzy. So this guy bought the gun in Indiana, was registered to him, the feds said, and the Honda CRV that the Morgan brothers were allegedly in when the officers pulled them over was also registered to Danzy, according to a criminal complaint. So I would imagine in some way of law that he's an accessory to what happened, given the fact the Glock was registered to him and he was driving them around. The fact that he's out on supervised bail, though, I don't know. That seems to support a lot of what Superintendent Brown is saying about the courts releasing more potentially dangerous perpetrators than the nonviolent offenders that probably shouldn't be held, that should be drawing a lower bail because they're not any kind of a threat while they're clogging up the system, along with violent offenders.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard also because this is across state lines, even Indiana thing. So maybe the federal government's going to get involved with this, but I just, in the cases that I remember us covering on things of this nature, that we've been also very upset about the low bails on people being released. It just seems consistent with what I remember of our Hard Lens stories covering crossing state lines instance. And he could literally have in court said, I forgot the gun in the car, or, there's a lot of different things that he can say, or there's a huge amount of technicalities that a normal lawyer could just talk about, like, hey, yeah, we thought we were just giving him the car, but I left the gun in there. Or I've talked to him thoroughly about what he needed the gun for, and he said, I need it for self-protection. A lot of people are threatening me. So I don't know. I feel like and if he was able to, if they were able to show, or they were arguing, the lawyer argued on his behalf that he's not going to go anywhere. He's just going to be where he is. I mean, I could see this turning out the way it did.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens in court. This was Superintendent Brown actually critical of the media and how they were, how they tend to hold the police more accountable than the court system. This came from Fox 32.
Serious consequences in our courts.
Chicago's top cop zeroing in on the courts once again after another violent weekend leaves at least 12 dead and dozens of others hurt.
Elizabeth Matthews is live at Chicago Police headquarters with the very latest. Elizabeth?
Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown is not mincing words. He is adamant that part of the problem with the violence on the streets of Chicago is the fact that violent offenders keep getting released on electronic monitoring. This weekend, like you mentioned, 70 people in the city of Chicago were shot. 12 people were shot and killed. The superintendent says his department recovered 104 weapons this weekend, nearly 6,900 this year. Chicago police officers are doing their part, he says, but the courts are not doing theirs. Brown is pointing to the fact that 90 people have been charged with murder and also released on electronic monitoring. The chief judge has said in the past that those cases are all first-time offenders or were in self-defense.
My question to you is, ask what the courts can do different. Rather than release violent people back to these communities to create an environment of lawlessness, can the courts hold people in jail who are violent, who have been arrested, who have been charged with murder? Murder. I don't think there's another city in this country releasing people charged with murder back into the community on electronic monitoring.
Yeah, all criticism of the police department aside, I can't disagree with him on that. It's difficult.
Yeah, I think that. So I would look at this from the precedent of when, like, we did like 3 strikes rules in like California and other places. That did not work either. I think that in a lot of ways, it's like how I talked about the pandemic. It's like when we're at this point that we're at with this slain officer and everything that's happened, we've already failed before this even happened. All the systems that are in place. So right now, police barely solve murders. They barely solve most serious crimes as it is right now. So, on that side, so their turnover percentages is very low. Then you look at the court systems. On one hand, what they used to do is if you did anything, you smoked a joint in the wrong place at the wrong time and in the wrong condition, you're going to jail for your entire life. Yeah. And now we're kind of on maybe a flip side of that. I feel like this is just another example. Like I said, she is just one output of a overall set of systems that we're dealing with. And of course, nothing's going to work out right. When the police kill someone, they don't get to go in trouble. They get paid vacation. That's not a good thing. When someone sells a gun to someone or however that transaction happened to someone and they shoot someone, nothing's really happening because of gun lobbies and how they've worked out, how all this stuff happens. We're watching a failed system be a failed system, and everyone's acting shocked like it's not working. And I think in a way, to the superintendent, I can't help but feel a bit of hypocrisy of how he's acting when it's one of his own that he's trying to protect versus the litany of times where it's someone that was completely innocent that they shot, where they literally do the exact opposite. Speech, our officers did everything could. They were scared. The guy moved his hands too quickly, and therefore it was right that we shot him. So I feel that at least I know he must feel the way that he's feeling. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But it's not a consistent standard that's being applied between everyone. And I think that as soon as that happens, just as a concept right away, you've already failed before you started. And then you get a circumstance like this where the police are, I think, justifiably really upset that this whole transaction happened. But they've also set a lot of precedents at other times where they're fine with these things happening.
Yeah.
So
Alvarez and Toledo body cam shootings.
Yeah, it just seems like the entire system's a mess within a mess within a mess, and everyone's acting like, why is it a mess? And I think also, frankly, because it's so rare that cops are actually killed, we just don't see these cases in these circumstances as often. So I think also the police are just not used to the system that they are usually fine with turning against them.
Yeah, very true. And as we talk about how, they are right. Ella French is rightfully being elevated. We also, I'll go on and you'll understand where I'm going with this. Did you know that Officer French left behind an infant child?
I did not hear that.
Well, she didn't, although we had heard this all week long. No, Chicago police officer Ella French didn't leave behind an infant child. Ella French, a 29-year-old Chicago police officer who was shot, in the days since, social media users have posted about someone else French supposedly left behind, an infant. This is Officer Ella French, conservative commentator Ryan Fournier said on Facebook on August 8th. She was shot and killed last night in Chicago while responding to a call. She leaves behind a 2-month son. Kayleigh McEnany, press secretary for then President Donald Trump, tweeted that she had a 2-month-old daughter and that, quote, Ella sacrificed her life in the line of duty and her daughter will grow up knowing her mother was a hero. I heard this all last week and it broke my heart. Other widely shared posts echoed this. One said she had just got back from maternity leave, but that's wrong. These posts were flagged as part of Facebook's efforts to combat false news and misinformation on its news feed. On August 9th, Stephanie Lulay, managing editor of Blog Club Chicago, a nonprofit news outlet in the city, wondered in a series of tweets why international news sites, national pundits, and even police departments reported that French was survived by her newborn child while local Chicago newsrooms didn't. Because it wasn't true, Lulay said. Ella French's brother, Andrew French, told the Chicago Sun-Times that his sister wasn't married and had no children. Brown also said this during an August 8th news conference. A reporter asked about rumors that French had just returned from maternity leave and had a child. That's not accurate, Brown said. You can watch the exchange about 17 minutes into a recording of the conference at the link that's on this page. But the reason I bring that up with the lionization of Officer French is that while we don't know what's happened yet, already you've got those on social media running to make a martyr out of her for exactly the reasons we discussed earlier. Once the narrative starts to get out of control and they start reporting all these, I mean, that's a heartbreaking story were it actually true. But for a week, I believed it until suddenly I just came across this article today that said, no, she didn't leave an infant behind. She doesn't have any children.
So this, again, now we're on almost, I would even say, a whole separate topic when we're getting to this point. Now we're strictly in media matters and politics. So this is gilding the lily. This is what we've seen a lot. And it's also very funny in that a lot of the same people that have made all these claims are the same people that chastise and do 20 segments anytime this happens on the other side in the other direction.
Yep.
So first of all, just hypocrisy again, just like I was saying, everyone is so busy picking their tribe and sticking to it that no one cares about the consistency of the facts, the consistency of improving things. So it's just like I talked about before, that it's a big issue that the police don't really solve crimes. But then other people say it's a hard, it's the problem is that things aren't getting done. I don't care about words, I care about action. So in this case, when people are talking that, she left behind a small child, that's simply done because they think it's a juicier story. What's a better story? I mean, again, we know a lot of the places and we know a lot of the personalities that like to spread this kind of message. So I'll kind of speak in the terms that they would use. What's a better story than a black man in a ghetto shooting a woman police officer who was a very good person if she also had a child that no longer has a mom? It's just a better headline. And everyone's rolling with it. And then on top of it, you have, as you mentioned, mainstream outlets that are rolling with it as well. I don't see their videos getting limited on YouTube for this because they're authoritative sources.
Right. Well, it's diversion. It's distraction and diversion away from what was actually going on to, I think get more positive vibes towards the police department or to create more empathy for the situation that the police are in all the time. There's a comment in the live chat I want to share here from Goatface, and they say she and her crew rolled up on those guys for bad tags and were about to ruin their lives. Sorry she got shot, but who started it and over what? A botched highway robbery by the biggest gang in town. Botched bad tags could indicate that the vehicle was stolen, and that is the police department's job to do. If the tags were bad, they had every right to pull over that car, and unfortunately, I don't understand why if you've got bad tags on a car, you think that it's all right for the people inside the car to just pull out the gun when the police are asking them to get out and shoot them. Sorry for that difference of opinion, Goatface, but I completely disagree with you.
Actually, ironically on this, because we've covered a couple of stories along, so I think I agree with you that it's not the right take, but I can want to see if I can make a little bit of a connection of why that's being said. So I know we've covered.
I know why it's being. Go ahead. I mean, I understand why, and I have empathy for that also. But given what happened, go ahead. We've covered a number of stories where like the police come and they find a small issue and then they ask. That's escalation.
It's like
escalation.
And this will just get back to what I was saying before, that like the fact that I definitely agree with your take on this one, Jerry, but I can also empathize with Goatface to some degree. And it's like the fact that I can do both of those again gets back to my original point, which is the fact that things work this way is because our system's bad and everyone's working within a bad system, and then bad outcomes are obvious outcomes.
Yeah, no, I do see both sides of it. I just think, given where we are right now, it just seems like it's a bit of a insensitive remark or insensitive take right now until we see how things play out, given what transpired. But given how concerned that the police department is with elevating Officer French's legacy, both Mayor Lightfoot and Superintendent Brown botched her name on 2 different occasions. Check this out. This is from Fox 32. Chicago Mayor Lightfoot botched fallen officer Ella French's name just days after Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown did the same. the horrible tragedy of Ella Frank's murder, Lightfoot said during the 2022 budget engagement forum held at Truman College on Thursday. Of course, the flub was criticized by the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, which tweeted on Friday that this was one of those times when words really matter. I guess they didn't hear when Superintendent Brown referred to Ella French as Ella Fitzgerald, which happened a few days earlier. The Fraternal Order of Police, their tweet. This is just, the Fraternal Order of Police, of course, going apeshit with their hair on fire. Her name was Ella French, not Frank, French. This was one of those times when words really matter. Please, her name was not Ella Frank. Her name was not Ella Fitzgerald. Her name was Ella French. Well, I would agree, but I don't see the same amount of criticism aimed at Superintendent Brown, where he says, Lightfoot botching her name comes just days after Brown referred to French as Ella Fitzgerald twice on Monday. The offender who was charged with first-degree murder of Ella Fitzgerald, Brown said at one point during the press conference. The gun used in the shooting and this murder of Ella Fitzgerald was illegally possessed. He said at another point, Ella Fitzgerald, as we know, is the name of an award-winning jazz singer who died in 1996. The flubs come after Lightfoot received an icy greeting from police officers in the city last week when she visited the hospital where French's partner is being treated for critical injuries stemming from the shooting. And that officer lost his eye, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I was going to say, this, I feel like I'm almost on a broken record with every update that we have with this. Everyone's just being this is the problem. This is a general problem with America. We see it everywhere nationally, see it locally, we see it internationally. It's just the way that the U.S. empire is at this point where, and this is, I guess, really a lot of what I'm taking out of this, and this is the vibe I'm getting from this entire story over and over again is, I feel like people don't really care about her. I feel that everyone just cares.
She's a symbol now. She's a symbol for what each side can do. Or how they can claim it for themselves for their own agendas.
She's just a resource for different tribes to use against each other. She's a weapon to be used against the other side, and nothing more. That's kind of where I've been trying to exactly figure out the words I'm using for, but that's basically it. It's every single step of this entire process. There isn't, even the funeral to me seems just symbolic and not really about her or for her. It's although I'm sure, again, there are people that are there where that's definitely true that did know her, but the amount of people that turned up, I don't think all of them know her, but I think all of them were like, I can relate because I have to make a story out of this that connects to my own worldview. No one cares about her in the big scheme of things. No one really cares about the people that shot her. No one really cares about the gun, how it was obtained. No one cares about any of that. The police chief cares so little that he doesn't get her name right. The police union's so mad at Lightfoot that they're going to attack her, even though it's hypocritical to do so. No one cares about this event. Everyone is just using it as ammunition, and that's the problem that we have. That's the problem with every step of this process. The police don't like the way that the courts are dealing with it because the police want to make the point that anyone that comes after any cop for any reason, for whatever, is a terrible person, needs to be dealt with the full extent of the law. So when the courts do anything that doesn't support that, they attack the courts. When Lightfoot wants to say the things because she's already on bad terms with the police and she screws up something, and I'll even say I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she was just copying what the police chief said, who also got it wrong. She fails because, again, the police wanted to attack her and say, look, you made this happen. No one wants to take responsibility for any of this. The only people that aren't going to take responsibility are the people that are either going to go to jail or the people that are injured or died. Those are the only people that care are the people that are either in the hospital or in prison and the people directly connected to them. Everything else in this is just politics.
Yeah, everyone around it, it's like vultures on the carcass. What can we take from this to serve our own agendas, to feed ourselves?
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. And I think that's a really good take on how everybody is taking this for their own agendas now, regardless of how this officer sacrificed her life, not willingly, but in the line of duty, just doing her job.
Yeah, and it's like you can tell when someone, matters and these things are done properly and people care about a person. I've been to enough funerals. I know what that's like. I know what that looks like. This entire thing just feels like a show, and it's as distasteful as when it's the other way around and cops kill someone. Although I feel it's a little different because of the power dynamic in there. But I feel bad for her. Like I said earlier, that this happens, and I can empathize with all the people that do. But she's not really the star of the story. She's just the symbol.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on to our next story. This comes to us from Alex Hernandez at Blog Club Chicago. City workers' removal of Black Lives Matter sign in North Park shows racism is alive and kicking, signs owners say. A North Park man caught the worker removing his sign on camera. Now he's hoping the city will hold the person who did it accountable. I don't understand how city workers can go around onto private properties and do this kind of shit. I mean, it's pretty odious to begin with. The fact that this city worker decided that it was their job to remove a sign from a private property that obviously is very relevant to all of these conversations we're having, whether it comes to police violence, whether it comes to other circumstances in our city with violence that's run amok, especially racial violence. After a city worker was caught on camera removing a Black Lives Matter yard sign from Dimitri Hepburn's home, local officials say they are working to quickly identify and discipline the employee. But Hepburn said what he wants to know is how city leaders will prevent similar behavior in the future. You know, they can go and they can pull people's signs off their private properties, and they can also have city workers or approve putting Amazon lockers in parks all over the city, which is unrelated to this story, but it just reminded me of like what priorities are with city workers deciding to allow one thing, but then go on a private property and do this kind of shit.
Yeah,
Hepburn, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, this reminds me of a story we covered a little bit ago with Pride Month, which I have a whole set of issues with for whole separate reasons that are very much connected to the same thing we've already talked about, where the city threw out a bunch of crosswalks that they made into rainbow colors, and the second Pride Month was done, like before the sun had even risen, they had sent all their crews in to cover all of those up with black tar, and they were no longer visible. So I think this still gets into tribalism and responsibility and the lack of responsibility that we have in this era, where if you're a city worker and you're in a competent run country, state, city, you're not going to do this. You're never going to do this, because if you feel that, you're going to be actually held responsible for destroying property, private property. Like in a good society, he should be fired and fined, at least, for an action like that. You don't just destroy. You're a public servant. The person you're destroying that sign from, he pays part of your salary. So stop being an asshole. But this person did it because he thought he could get away with it, because the culture is that of no responsibility or very little responsibility. Now, he's not a cop where you could easily get away with that with no issue.
Well, and the cops did earlier this year when they were taking down the memorials to Adam Toledo. This is what this reminded me of. I was thinking of Amazon lockers, but I'm like, no, I knew that there was something else. Oh, yeah. When cops were caught taking down the memorials to Toledo, and it was okay. They were able to exercise their thoughts and opinions on removing the memorials to this kid that they shot, as this city worker thinks it's okay to tear down Black Lives Matter when it's something that's very relevant and on the minds of everybody in this city.
Exactly. It's exactly it. And so he's going out of his way to go on someone else's property to do this. He is just a bigot acting out, knowing he'll have protection because there's a city union that'll back him. It's really hard to fire him. He's at worst going to get a vacation.
At worst. Hepburn said, I shared the video because it's something that happens commonly, and if it's not caught on video, people are more easily able to write it off as insignificant or say it didn't happen, Hepburn said. And I'm sure the city's probably rather pissed off that she had the security camera to provide the evidence of this. The incident, first reported by the tribe, occurred August 12th near Bryn Mawr and Spalding Avenues. The city worker wearing a yellow shirt was posting a no parking sign on a nearby tree around noon that day. In the video captured by Hepburn's doorbell camera, the worker approaches Hepburn's home and yanks the white and Black Lives Matter sign from the yard. The worker puts the sign face down, hiding the words on it, and walks away. I don't see much other motivation beyond him seeing the words Black Lives Matter, him being opposed to that, and then doing what he did in response, Hepburn said. The incident was an example that racism is unfortunately still alive and kicking.
But I hate when people write articles that have that, and it's like, oh my God, did you guys know that racism is still around in America? I had no idea, but this video, this picture, this doorbell camera changed everything. Okay. Like I said, he knows that nothing's going to happen. He's doing it impulsively because he knows that even if he knew he's not getting it. By the way, I think one of the most important things that I heard in this article so far is him saying, I don't care about him being disciplined as much as I want to know how the city's going to deal with this going forward. I think that's actually the biggest crux of this story, if there is a crux to talk about, because again, what is the city going to do? They're going to hem, they're going to haw, they're going to be really upset that the guy did it with and got caught on camera. That's what they're really upset at him for, because it's not actually, again, he doesn't matter, the sign doesn't matter, it's the reputation hit that they think they've taken is what matters to them. That's what is that's why the worst he's going to get is a vacation, because they're just going to say we're going to do something to say we disciplined him, but they really don't care, and they're not going to do anything about it. And so this is going to happen. And again, if he's doing this, he probably also saw how the police handled Toledo and was like, well, they did it and they did fine. Why can't I? And then his union rep's going to say the exact same thing. So he's able to walk up and do this, and the only people that are able to walk up and do this are people that already know that nothing's going to happen, so they're not even thinking of consequences. It's just an impulse that he's exercising.
Well, the Office of the Inspector General confirmed receiving the complaint, but would not comment further. Yeah, we got the complaint. There's going to be an investigation. Alderman Samantha Nugent has met with Hepburn, and the alderman, not the Inspector General, but the alderman, met with Hepburn and his wife about the incident. In a statement, she said what happened was unacceptable. Hepburn said he appreciates how responsive Nugent has been and was impressed at how quickly the Office of the Inspector General contacted him to discuss the incident. Oh, I guess they did reach out and discuss it. Since the worker was putting up no parking signs, Hepburn thinks it shouldn't be too difficult for the city to identify him based on work logs. But I am curious to see what not tolerating looks like and looking forward to hearing how he'll be held accountable, Hepburn said. I guess we'll find out after the Inspector General's investigation is over.
Yeah.
There'll be a follow-up.
Yeah. By the way, the other thing, I want to ask your opinion on this.
Sure.
Because you can tell, especially with Chicago politics, I'm very cynical. But I'm not sure. I don't. Oh my God! I just read it's all new thing. Anyway, what are the chances that the alderman going to out there is just for PR? The alderman thinks that's something they have to do. How much do you think that they actually care?
I would say 50-50. I mean, I don't know enough about the alderman in that ward to. I mean, I know enough about aldermen in some wards to think that I'll give him benefit of the doubt. Other wards, absolutely not. They're doing it for the publicity value. But yeah, I mean, you've got a very good point there. There are reputations that need to be preserved in this situation.
Yeah, I always look at these again, just from rules for rulers perspective, and I always say, does the action that they're taking help them personally more than it sacrifices for the person they're supposed to be helping?
So, I just recently got through rewatching season 1 of a Starz show that was on, I want to say 5 years ago, called Boss. And Boss was about a character, the mayor of Chicago, Tom Kane, played by Kelsey Grammer. And this show is a biting, scathing indictment of how the sausage is made in politics in Chicago. It's a drama. It's a really good show. But as you were talking about how this alderman is out there for the PR value, and I just got through the first season last night. I was watching it while I was working. That's all the mayor's office was doing in this show, was like they would create crises to try to cover up other crises and then come out and make it look like they were responding for favorable public support. And I would really, that show only lasted 2 seasons. It didn't go into a third season. They said because of ratings, but I personally think that I don't imagine the city of Chicago appreciated that show being produced here in Chicago, because it was so much on the finger of the pulse of what we suspect is going on behind the scenes. I would really highly recommend it for people who it was the Chicago version of House of Cards, which is that Netflix show with Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright about politics in Washington. People think it's all fiction and it's all fantasy. It's like, no, the writers of that show probably had their finger on the pulse of what Washington politics are like behind the scene. I think much in the same way of this show Boss did with Kelsey Grammer, which I would highly recommend on a separate note, although it kind of relates to what we're talking about here with politicians in Chicago and how they, will trot out to do things more for PR than actual results.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's like Chicago is really bad. We're the most corrupt city besides Washington, D.C. We're the corrupt city within a state, I like to say. And so a lot of this, it's just kind of, this is the culture. This is the culture that breeds the culture. These are the people that get into office that end up doing these kind of, I don't know, I think again, just like with all the previous story with the officer, people, it's the crime doesn't matter. It's the perception of the crime that matters to them. And I think that as long as we're in a position where that formula plays out in that way, we're never okay. So here, I have a good kind of side story similar to this. Something that was a fascination from a while back. It was okay. If you don't on YouTube, have you heard of YouTube? There are larger channels. Have you heard of these? When they'll like go out and they'll help feed the homeless, like for a good to help them out and to be good. Of course, they also make a huge amount of money from the views. So there's a couple different channels that have done this, and some have done it, I think, in a way that's very respectful, where they're like, look, guys, we're not going to show you the faces of the people. We really just want to show that everyone should do something. It's usually around Thanksgiving, where people like put together like 200 like boxes of XYZ, and then they'll just go and give it to people. And most of the video is just like very quick of them running out and handing it, not showing anything. But then there are like other channels that are that go up and like talk to the person, but you can tell they're like, hey, say something good about us if you want this food, and then they'll film that, cut that part out, so the person's like, oh, thank you so much, I don't know what I would have done if. And so one channel in particular that did that, again, most of them will just do it once, maybe once a year, they'll move on. Other channels will do it once, and then they'll go, oh, this got twice as many views as everything else I did. And then they'll do it again, but they'll have a twist. They'll have something else. Oh, we're going to give people a choice between two boxes. And then I remember one got escalated where he would start he would pay the homeless to eat toothpaste at some point. So again, it's just the way the human mind works. It's the way that accountability works. And ironically, it's really easy to do that on YouTube and make a huge amount of money. Just don't tell the news where you're doing it.
Of course. Speaking of crimes, how about this story as it relates to giving away public land to former presidents? Justice Barrett rejects effort to halt the Obama library construction. This is through Yahoo News, although I just noticed also it did come from Fox News. So I'm already, wondering how this will slant to the narrative. Although I've also been very critical of how so much public land, parkland, has been given away down in Hyde Park for the Obama library instead of land that they could purchase elsewhere that isn't taking it away from the people who live in that community. Supreme Court, surprisingly conservative, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett denied a petition to stop the construction of an Obama Foundation library in Chicago. We greatly appreciate the continued support of our project and process by the courts, including now from the highest court in the land, an Obama Foundation spokesperson told Fox News on Friday. With their support and the outpouring of support we received from so many on the South Side and across the city of Chicago, we were so pleased to be able to kick off our construction this past week and get us one day closer to doors opening at the Obama Presidential Center. The advocacy group Protect Our Parks, and I think that's the organization that was able to keep George Lucas out of taking the parkland for the Star Wars Museum, who, as much as people who know me know I'm a Star Wars fanatic, that museum did not belong here. No, not even on any land. That I thought that belonged in California. But he's married to Melanie Hobson here, so there was a lot of politics involved with the movers and shakers wanting to put that museum here on public parkland also. But anyway, the advocacy group Protect Our Parks and other plaintiffs had tried to halt the construction of the Obama Presidential Library in Chicago's Jackson Park this week, citing it would be harmful to the local environment. Today's Supreme Court decision is disappointing, but not surprising. We still believe that preserving the status quo is fundamental to preventing irreparable harm in Jackson Park, the petitioner's co-counsel Michael Ratchless said in a statement The Hill reported Friday. Nonetheless, our core arguments seek to protect the long-term environmental and historical resources in Jackson Park, and we look forward to presenting our evidence and these arguments in the appellate and district court in the coming weeks. Barrett is the Supreme Court judge tasked with handling emergency matters from Illinois and could have acted on the petition or referred it to other justices, the court's website said on Friday, indicates she rejected the bid. The advocacy group also claimed that the construction evaded a federally required review process on its environmental impacts and said the project should instead be built in Washington Park, which is a few miles away. I would say what Obama wants, Obama gets.
Well, here you go. Obama cares so much about the community that he's willing to ignore their wishes to build a whole center that'll raise property taxes and rent so much that the people that he wants to show it to won't even live in the area by the time it's done.
Oh, a lot of people are being driven out too because of the land around it that's also going to be used. Yeah, this monument, the library, it looks like something out of, I don't know, ancient times. It's like it's reminds me of the pyramids.
Yeah, little mausoleum to Obama. I want to shout out to
right now too.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the picture of it. Go ahead.
Shout out to E. Heller, who I think is asking the most pertinent question that we have not addressed in this topic, which is, I wonder how many Amazon lockers will be installed there. That's the real question we should be asking.
E. Heller, man, you are on the case there. Absolutely. Yeah, there all along our other public parkland in Jackson Park, Washington Park. Where's the picture here? I'm trying to get people who I'm sure people can find a picture of it online as far as, oh, here it is. Okay, I got it. Let me pop the link in.
By the way, I think I found a solution, a compromise that the rich will also appreciate very much. And that's like, we have all this parkland. If they don't want us to develop it, why not just turn it into golf courses?
Yeah, well, they have a golf course on South Shore already. But yeah, I think that you hit it right on the head, Daniel. The fact that Obama really doesn't give a shit about what people in the neighborhood there think is, while he's partying out in, where does he lives out in the Hamptons with Richard Branson. Vineyard. Yeah, Martha's Vineyard, while he's having his birthday parties. Who was there? Who was playing? I forgot the group that was playing there for his birthday last week.
It's whoever he wants.
Yeah, it's whoever he wants. But got to put the library up on public parkland here. There it is. Yeah, it does look like it's just a bizarre design. But yeah, E. Heller, you're absolutely right. And we've been talking about this amongst ourselves behind the scenes, just how tone deaf it is to the circumstances in the community as far as seizing public land, while you've got people here that are not against it, but can you build it? They've got the entire the hospital, the hospital land that got torn down for the Olympics. Remember when Daley was trying to get the Olympics here? What was the name of that hospital land? Now I'm forgetting.
Dust to Dust.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire flatland there along Lakeshore Drive, but they got to seize the parkland instead.
Yeah, well, this is much more picturesque. I mean, you got to give Obama that. He does have an eye for the best location, even if it's public land owned by the people.
Yeah. Well, I would like to end tonight's broadcast with our final story. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a feel-good story.
Oh?
Yeah, it is. Biden to nominate Rahm Emanuel as ambassador to Japan after months of speculation. And I understand that Godzilla has something to say about this.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
Hey, man, as far as I'm concerned, the farther from Chicago they can ship Rahm Emanuel, the better. I don't know what opportunities he's going to have as the ambassador of Japan, but I only wonder if his family is as thankful as the rest of us that Biden is shipping him over there. Because, you just had to reward Rahm Emanuel for his loyalty to the Democratic Party and all the things that he was doing behind the scenes to subvert the two primaries along with the rest of the DNC. But from the Chicago Tribune, President Joe Biden will nominate Rahm Emanuel as his ambassador to Japan, capping off months of speculation that the former Chicago mayor would be tapped for the prominent foreign post the White House announced Friday. There was a lot of speculation before this finally came out, a lot of concern that Biden was going to give him a more, valuable post or a post within his administration that actually had some bearing on influencing policy. This, not so much. The move will give Biden a deeply experienced government tactician and political veteran in his ranks of top diplomats, but the choice also drew criticism from some in the Democratic Party's progressive wing who have found fault with Emanuel's 8-year, 10 years mayor. Okay, I will agree with them on that. He shouldn't be rewarded anything, given the fact that he covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald. But, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth that he's being shipped like onto the other side of the world.
So I have a slightly different take on this. I'm a little more worried than you. First of all, let's go through all the good things Rahm has done to earn all this love. First, he was the basically the chief of staff for Obama. So there's already a connection right there. That's connected right over to Biden. They originally wanted to give him a better seat, but again, he's so unpopular that didn't work out. And eventually public pressure knocked him out of, I forget what he wanted to do in the cabinet, but whatever it was. Going to Japan. Japan is a giant economy that has a huge amount of ties to us. I mean, we're basically their military still. And someone like Rahm, he's going to make a lot of deals. He's going to be the point person that introduces Japanese businesses to American farmland, to American public land. He's the guy that they know is super connected. And they know how America works. He's the hand that they have to grease to get anything done. So Rahm is definitely not going to be in America, but he's going to still be affecting America nonetheless. And I think in a very major way with just the size of the Japanese economy. It's number 3 largest economy on the planet. He's the ambassador. That's a lot of power.
Why did you have to take my feel-good story and suddenly turn it into something that, yeah, you got a point. Now I'm concerned. I mean, when he was Obama's chief of staff, he had a big hand in, I think, influencing Obama to not try to negotiate from Medicare to single payer, but from single payer to Obamacare, which was Mitt Romney's plan.
So he did the biggest thing he did, and why this is the real reason he gets the special treatment. That's part of it. That was a lot. That was not fully him. The thing that he did, he got the votes for it.
Yeah.
The thing that he did, he's the guy that put in the provision in Dodd-Frank, I believe, that said banks are automatically, without having to go into Congress, bailed out at the rate of $100 billion a day, which is what the banks used 2 years ago. We were covering that. No one was covering that. Hardlines was covering that because we're like, what is happening? For I want to say like for 3 months, the Fed was just giving again, their cap is $100 billion. They were giving that much every day to the banks, every single day for like 3 months. And that was something that he made happen because before, if he had not existed, what would have happened is we would have had a depression a couple of years ago. And what would have happened is the banks would have had to what they normally do. They have to go to Congress with their hands pulling their pockets. I don't have any money. What am I going to do? I need a bailout. That would have hurt the stock market and confidence in the system. Rahm put the piece together that they don't have to do that anymore. It just is an automatic process. The bank says, I'm out of money. Give me more. Give me $100 billion a day at max. And that's why he is loved, because Wall Street controls both parties, and he gave them access to $100 billion a day.
So it seems that this was a strategic move on the part of the Biden administration, since I think they were looking at giving him transportation before they gave it to Buttigieg.
That was it.
So this was the shift to.
Yeah, this is a prominent position. I mean, ambassadorships have always been like that. It's you're effectively the diplomatic representative or the representative of of an entire country. And Japan is literally the biggest capitalist market besides the U.S.
Yeah. Well, what about China? What about how their position next to China, though, as far as the economies and creating products and goods?
China doesn't need that same connection the way, because Japan is basically a client state to some degree. It has a lot of autonomy, but it is effectively a U.S. client to some degree. Again, we're their military. They have a self-defense force, but that's like all the old stuff that our military doesn't use is their self-defense force. Our bases are there. We're completely economically connected to Japan. The amount of power, I remember someone said, I never looked into it to see if it was actually accurate, but Japan's economy was growing at such a rate at one point that it would have surpassed the U.S. economy. And the U.S. is like, nope, now you're stagnating. That's just how it is. So if he went to China, he doesn't have the same influence. China already is gaining influence everywhere. They don't really care about Rahm Emanuel. What do they care about? What are they going to do? Agree? They already working with Trump. They have direct connections. They don't even need an ambassador for that. it's a lot more relevant for Japan.
Well, all I can say is in a perfect world.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
That was
agree.
That's really
the best part. That's such a good video.
Thank you. I think I spent about 2 hours putting it together today just for this story. That's the kind of show prep I put in.
Hey, I gotta say, everyone watching, this is more prep than we do at Hard Lens Media. I love that, but it's like, you know what? I do hope Godzilla steps on him.
Yeah.
I hope that, but I think in more reality, I hope he just gets food poisoning from bad shoot sushi. I don't know. What can I ask?
Yeah, if prayers were heard. Anyway, as we kind of come to the end of our broadcast here, I want to encourage people who are. Also, I wanted to also mention who was it that while you were talking about Rahm, it was Michael Reese Hospital. B. Ford was able to. It was the Michael Reese Hospital site that got torn down when we were talking about the Obama library. That would be the perfect site for it if they decided to. It's all flatland now, and it's all ready, but got to take Jackson Park. Let's read some of our other live chat comments here. This is great. From Christina Suazo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Love watching your show. Chicago and New York City have a ton in common, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping us informed. You guys have Cuomo. We've got Cuomo's the governor. We've got on a local level Lightfoot. Although I would say that Rahm Emanuel was just as odious as you guys had to deal with Cuomo.
By the way, isn't it crazy how screwed up Illinois is? That we have a billionaire governor, and he's kind of doing okay for Illinois standards.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. He actually has surprised me. I was not a big fan of Pritzker because I'm, the battle of the billionaires to hold power in the governor's office. But Pritzker's actually managed to do a few good things, so I'll give him credit for that. Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Me and Kit got to shake his hand when he was running. We actually did an interview with him on the early Hard Lens Media stuff.
So on a personal note, how did you find him? Do you think, obviously politicians are in this for themselves, but how much sincerity did you feel was coming from him as far as actually like making a difference as opposed to this just being elevating himself?
So I would say, I would look at it this way, that he was willing to do a quick interview with what he knew was an unknown media source and actually was pretty attentive to what we were asking. I think that said a lot to me. I also got the sense of his personality. But again, the issue is that you shouldn't be able to buy your way into this stuff anyway. Right. But again, it's like, the amount, if you have the choice of killing someone in Chicago or being governor, you're going to be put in jail twice as likely for being governor. And we've just had horrible governors. I mean, Rauner just destroyed the entire government nonprofit sector and just everything.
The rest are in jail doing time or done time.
And he legalized pot. And so it's like, I begrudgingly, it's like I have to be a man of principles and say, he's not doing terrible. And I expected him to do terrible. And,
It'll be interesting to see if he has a challenger next election.
I think he's cemented. I think that he has locked in place. My sense is that he wants to do, so it's really bad to ever do legacy with money in any way, shape, or form. Obama looking to do legacy is what we see in the part we just covered. I get the sense, but I really don't want to say it because it's saying something nice, but I get the sense that he wants his legacy to be being a good governor that people look back on in Illinois history.
Yeah. And
I think that if you want a motivation and you're in that position, not a bad one. And that to also talk about Kit, because we covered that. That was back when we were out in the field all the time. The one right below with Chris Kennedy. Oh my God, there's a video from the Assyrian event that I covered with his brother. His brother, I give it a 98% chance, had just done cocaine before it started.
You give a 90% he was on cocaine?
Yeah, his brother. Oh yeah, it was nuts. Like Kit was right. Like they had the most it was the most chaotic, poorly run campaign ever because Chris Kennedy had the understanding from his own connections in the state that he was going to be handpicked for governor. And Pritzker was originally going to be in the cabinet of Hillary Clinton, but when that didn't work out, he's like, "Well, I got to do something else now, so I'm going to run for governor of Illinois." That's how that all happened. Kennedy was just beside himself, angry, because this was supposed to be his chair. He was supposed to be governor, and then him and Biss were fighting each other for basically the same base. Whereas Pritzker just blanketed more money than has ever been spent in a governor race in history. And here we are.
Daniel and Kit, do you know, is that video in our archives on our YouTube channel for Chicago Corner?
It's going to be, no, that's all on Hardlens.
It's on Hardlens.
There's a 2-year stint where Hardlens was Chicago Corner effectively by another term.
Okay.
But it's, just look up the Assyrian event. It might also be on our Facebook, which you have control over if you want to find it. It exists. I mean, you can find it. And you can also find our interview with Pritzker there as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to encourage our viewers tonight who have joined us in the live chat and who watch us during our live streams all the time. Thank you for joining us. I'm right now drinking from my Batman mug, but soon it will be replaced by my Chicago Corner mug. And I would really encourage all of you to look in the comments down below. YouTube isn't monetizing us yet. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers. But if you want to help with some of the expenses that relate to running the channel, you can click on our Cafe Press Store link below. You can get a really cool Chicago Corner mug. We've got some t-shirts, and we've also got a really nice Chicago Corner sign decal. If you love the show that much, you can put up in your own home. In the meantime,
and by the way, just for the record,
yeah,
I think you guys have the better logo than us. Like, your logo is perfect.
I had a fun time creating that when I joined you guys. I mean, my first spark of inspiration was Chicago Corner. We got to have like a branding for this that looks really cool and it just popped up in my mind. That's what I saw. So as you all see the signs that are like either like this or, this way, I was really proud of that. So yeah, it's right down in the corner there. Actually, E. Heller, I created the signs, and then E. Heller did. I had them like in this direction, and then he was the one who crossed them, and just it lays out better. So I'm very happy with the teamwork here that helped with our branding for the channel. But yeah, check out our Cafe Press Store. Please like and subscribe our videos. Please share our videos on social media if you enjoy them. I have seen our subscriber numbers gone up, which is really encouraging. We're really hoping we get to 1,000 pretty soon, and that's with the generosity of all of you making sure to like and subscribe and share us with your friends that will hopefully be interested in what's going on in Chicago and all the things that we cover. Daniel, anything else that you want to share before we bring the broadcast to a close tonight?
No, I think we had a good show. I think we covered a lot of good topics in a meaningful way, talked about the big picture that connects all of them, and we talked about how Chicago not only is about Chicago, but how it connects right back to the planet and the U.S. specifically. And I am very sorry I got you now worried about Rahm Emanuel's position.
Well, there's still some time for him to get. A lot of things can happen. It's a long way to Japan. On his way over there. So, well, listen, Daniel, thanks for joining me tonight. It's always a pleasure to rap with you on what's going on in the city, as well as when I have an opportunity to guest host on Hardlands Media and we talk about the national scene. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight and who participated in the live chat. I want to tell everyone, please be safe on the streets this weekend. I think we're going to have a nice weather. I think the Blue Angels, are flying.
Oh, I know. It's so annoying. They're always like, hey, look at us. We'll make your windows shake. Look at this. Woo!
Yeah. Well, just stay safe out there, Chicago. And remember, if it's happening on the streets, you will hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Good night, Chicago, and be safe.